And can I now request our dear President Mir Bhai to come and address all of us?
Chairman Narayan Pasari, mentors, Jayant Gokhale, Anand Bathiya, who's also office bearer, my dear colleague. Mudit Yadav, you will know about him very soon. He's himself also a celebrity and also a product of BCS. So let's give a very big hand to all those people, coordinators, conveners, and to you, all those ebullient, effervescent, very brilliant crowd of new chartered accountants whom we are so privileged to felicitate today. Let me tell you, we are not only felicitating you, we are also felicitating ourselves, because we realize that we are talking to future leaders. And this is one thing which I can really assure you of, that there are a few things which your mentors are here to answer you, but a platform like this is something which will give you that strength to really guide you, because all these previous years, couple of years at least before you passed out, there was only one single focus in your life: how to really pass these exams and achieve your first milestone. Having achieved that, suddenly you will find a vacuum, and it happens with everybody. I don't know if you remember, but the first man, of course, to walk on the moon was Louis Armstrong. But the second man, Aldrin, he also had the same privilege. And all these years of nurturing this single focus, single-minded pursuit that I want to be the person, who would be walking on the moon. And suddenly, once he walked on the moon, everything just collapsed. He became almost a psychiatric patient because that focus got lost. Fortunately, you are very young and you have a number of opportunities. What are those opportunities? What are the things that you can do? I'm quite sure you also have a lot of questions, whether we should pursue a profession, we should pursue industry. If so, in which particular domain that you should really specialize in, whether it's just tax, indirect tax, direct tax, audit, or advisory. These are the questions that you would be carrying in your mind. As a person who's passed exams 35 years back, I can tell you one thing, that there are two things which really pay in life. One is patience. So do not expect that you would suddenly be, absorbed in an advisory and you would be advising the client. To be able to reach that stage, you have to really start from the bottom. You have to really know the nitty-gritties. You have to understand how the systems work, how human beings work, because you need to be exposed to a lot of people. How do you deal with that? Well, of course, on your own strength, but also on the strength of institutions like Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. There is such a lot that BCS offers. And I can tell you at this stage, when you are just looking, at things afresh, this is one institution which will give you far more than what you would give it to them. So if you take one step, BCS will be walking with you for 10 steps to guide you, nurture you, and take you forward. So my personal advice is that do become a member, because it will expose you to a lot of senior people who are paid 50,000 lakh of rupees per hour to be, to be asking them the questions, to be your counsel. Here, you can network with them. You can take your time. And these are the people who are always willing to mentor. As you can see, there are lots of senior people. They are really very senior. So do take this opportunity. I wish you good luck and a very happy mentoring session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mir Bhai. And may I now request our Vice President, Chirag Doshi, to please come and address the audience.
Thank you. Respected Chairman, past presidents, President, my office bearers, mentors for today, friends. BCS has given platform to all of us, and so will to you. But before that, you all have cleared, there are a lot of doubts. What can a CA do? What can a CA not do? Sky is the limit for CA is what people talk today. I say that there is a world for chartered accountants beyond the sky as well, and look for that world. Another thing is always think big, think different, is the motto. We have mentors today who are going to be explaining you about different facet of professional life, how they have gone through, what are the current situations, how it's all going to be about. So that's what they are going to be explaining. I recently read that by 2030, India is going to have the highest young and working population in the world. So we're moving towards that, where we are going to have the highest number of people working, a lot of professionals required, various different avenues available apart from audit, tax, which you would have heard during your articleships, right from valuations to startups, to gig economy, to freelancing, to advisory, to virtual CFO, you name it, and it's available, forensics. So all of these opportunities are wide open for you now. The gates are open. So please take opportunities of that. Apart from that, I would like to just give you a brief about how BCS operates. BCS obviously has past presidents who are chairmen of various committees. BCS has in total 10 committees, which there are technical and certain human skills development and non-technical committees, right from direct tax, indirect tax, internal audit, international taxation, accounting, auditing, technology committee. We have internal audit committee. Then we have our human resource development committee and the membership and public relationship committee, which holds this program every year to felicitate all young chartered accountants and rankers. So within that, above that committee, we have the managing committee, where we have selected members and elected members who take about the strategic decision, policy decisions about the organization. We have office bearers, where we have one treasurer, two secretaries, one vice president, and president for the year. And then, as I said, we have a lot of past presidents who are also mentoring, are part of the organization. They chair the committees and they drive the whole thing. They're always available for, guiding the youth, mentoring them. We also have programs like mentoring. So whenever that programs are announced, you get one of the best mentors. Please take most benefit of it. So this is how, BCS operates. This is one of the office, and then we have one back office where the staff sits. So there's an event management team, there is accounting team, there's membership team, there's a technology team, there's a social media team. So all of this put together is how this organization works, with maximum of the people as working honorary on this. So and it's entering its 74th year, entering its 75th year. So an organization having 75 years of history speaks by itself. So please take most advantage of it, as the president mentioned. Apart from that, we have recently, as you guys have qualified our next event, which is, IA 101, which is on internal audit, but it talks about, it's a basic program. It talks about risk control management, which will help you in any facet of the, profession you go, but it's going to help you. It's coming in next week. So please take advantage of that. Apart from that, we have data analytics. It has everything as a part of that program, which is required as a basic for chartered accountant to move out, and it's the right time. So take most benefit of it. Apart from that, I think we have associations with other institutions as well, where certain benefits or cross benefits are done between institutions like IRM, IIA, all. So please take benefits of those also. So become a member and then you can start getting attached to it. So friends, BCS has helped me personally a lot in my professional life. And I am sure it is going to help you once you are part of this family very soon. Thank you, everybody. And please enjoy the session today. Thank you.
May I now request the chairman of the SPR MD committee, Narayan Bhai, to please address us.
नमस्कार दोस्तों. First question, how many of you have heard about BCA before this event? Please raise your hands. Quite a good number. Thank you. President CA Mihir, VP CA Chirag, our mentors for the evening, CA Jayant, CA Anand and CA Mudit, past president and past chairman of this committee, CA Uday, treasurer of BCA, CA Zubin, my conveners, CA Kinjal Manmohan in absentia, Mrinal and Preeti present, my coordinators, CA Lalit, Utsav and CA Vishal, other members of BCA, and of course, my dear achievers, the freshly qualified chartered accountants. Good evening to all of you. On behalf of my committee, Seminar, Public Relations and Membership Development, I once again congratulate and welcome all of you to this regular event of the BCA Society, which is being held for the last few years. Thank you for being present in such large numbers. About 214 have already registered, which includes 14 rank holders. Registered means registered at the counter, not on the social media where we had, Mrinal, how many numbers to start? 500. Youth or Yuva Shakti, as we call it, is an integral part of BCA's activities, and we have been focusing on the youth and related activities in various forms of programs and events. You must have seen the video being played outside. Let me tell you something more about the initiatives of this committee of BCAs which I lead. First is the must sought after RRC residential refresher course conducted by this committee. The 56th edition of the RRC will be held between 23rd to 26th February 2023 next year in Coimbatore. The RRC brings the best of the latest and relevant topics with eminent speakers for the various sessions spread over 4 days. The time-tested panel and group discussions format of the RRC is ideal for an intense participation learning facilitated by collective wisdom as the delivery mechanism. Second, each year BCA comes out with a premium and prized publication called the BCA Referencer. This year was an extremely special one, being the 60th year of its continuous publication. To mark this momentous occasion, we brought out a collector's edition, a supplement tracing the history of the referencer over the past 6 decades. It is a testimony of BCA's commitment to equip our community with the necessary tools to function effectively. The referencer is a theme-based publication, and the theme this year was Independent India to mark 75 years of our independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Third, as a social initiative, this committee, along with the BCA Foundation, also conducts a blood donation camp every year at the BCA office. This year, we conducted the blood donation at an outside venue, the Brahma Kumari's Hospital, Andheri West, which was led by the Yuva Shakti. Last year, we ran the largest CA mentor-mentee program with 113 mentees from 42 towns and cities spread across 17 states, being guided by 56 mentors who collectively invested 175 hours virtually. The feedback received from the mentees has been extremely encouraging, and even now, some of the mentees continue to be in touch with the mentors for guidance. We have been receiving several requests to come out with the next edition, and I'm delighted to announce that we will soon roll out the season 2 sometime in the month of November, December this year. I urge you to enroll for this as soon as it is announced, as we have very few limited seats whenever we do it. Besides this, the committee conducts various other programs for the benefit of the members. Coming to today's event, BCA recognizes the sheer hard work and efforts put in each one of you to qualify as a chartered accountant. Clearing the exam is the first milestone towards success. In the words of businessman, investor, engineer, philanthropist, and ex-chairman of Wipro Limited, Mr. Ajit Premji, success is achieved twice, once in the mind and second time in the real world. To imagine success in the mind, it is critical that you have the required clarity of thought. To help you do that, we have planned an engaging fireside chat on scale up or scale up with our esteemed speakers. The questions sent to you have been shared with them well in advance. By the end of this evening, I am sure that you will have more answers than probably the number of questions you have started with. Most of you spent a greater part of your articleship period during the restrictions brought in about by the global pandemic. No doubt, clearing the examination is an important aspect. However, you will agree that the knowledge one gains by working on various assignments and clients is what actually enriches one's professional learning. You are, of course, the best judge of how much of this learning you were able to acquire during your articleship. From here on, you need to take ownership for everything that happens in your life. Dear friends, poised as you are to reach for the skies, we at BCS consider it our responsibility to equip the young Indian budding CS with the right set of skills and knowledge to achieve professional success and name. Come and join BCS and expand your horizons. Membership forms are available with the events team. For this event, the committee put in a lot of efforts. I thank the conveners Preeti and Vinal and coordinators Lalit, Vishal and Utsav for their efforts. Today we are fortunate to have three extremely articulate and well-respected speakers in CA Jayant, CA Anand and CA Mudit, a mixed blend of senior and youth. CA Anand is also one of the joint secretaries of the society as mentioned by the president. While they need no introduction, I still call upon convener Preeti to do the honors and explain the format of this event to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Naren Bhai. Before I hand over the proceedings to the fireside chat, our mentors, just a quick brief on how does the evening pan out. We'll first, of course, most of you must have already read about our speakers on LinkedIn and various other social media platforms, because this generation is it believes in just immediately checking on what's happening in the world, and you would have surely checked them out, but I'm going to also read about them. So we will have the fireside chat, and as Narayan Bhai mentioned, that the questions you had sent have already been shared with them, and they would be taking those up, and if time permits, we will also take some floor questions from you. We then have the felicitation of our rank holders. We have AIR 1, Meet and AIR 4, Akshat Jain here. So we will also give them an opportunity to address all of us and tell us how did they crack this exam? How did they top the exam? And then we will also felicitate the rest of the rank holders, and there will be a cake cutting by all the rank holders, followed by the felicitation of all others who have made this. And so, yes, that's how the evening is being planned. And now about our speakers. As Narayan Bhai said, they need no introduction, but I am still going to insist on reading it. First of all, we have the birthday boy, Jayant Bhai here. So please put your hands together. Sir, you'll have to ask them for... Well, I didn't orchestrate that. This is coming spontaneously. So he's the founder partner of Gokhale and Chartered Accountants, Mumbai, and he has handled central statutory audit of PSUs, listed private sector banks, internal audit of numerous public undertakings, corporates, BCCI and MCA. He was an advisor to the government of Maharashtra up to 2017 and presently assists the Ministry of Defense, Government of India on accounting reforms. He served on the Regional Council for 6 years and was the chairman of the WIRC of the ICAI in 1998. And he has been an elected Central Council member of the ICAI for 12 years and served on almost all its prestigious committees. He's an independent director on several boards, including the L&T Mutual Fund Trustee Company Limited, and is audit committee chair on PTC India Limited, PFS Limited, SBI DFHI Limited. And his rich professional career has seen him being member of various professional committees, visiting faculty at various institutions, including the IIM Bangalore. He has also authored 2 publications on TDS published by BCS and the accounting standards by the ICAI. So thank you so much, Jayant Bhai, for being here. The next introduction is about a partner and practice head of transactions at Bathiya and Associates LLP. He has previously worked with world-leading accounting and consulting firms. He's a fellow member of the ICAI and a qualified company secretary, and he has advised 250 plus companies on M&A transactions and helps businesses raise equity resources through public equity and private equity. He's also involved in various corporate consulting, valuation, group restructuring, financial reporting, and insolvency restructuring engagements. He's the member of the group promulgated by the Valuation Standards Board for drafting valuation standards to be made applicable by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and is the key author of Valuation Standard on Financial Instruments. He's the honorary secretary of the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society and member of various committees of the Chamber of Tax Consultants and the WIRC. He has been a speaker at various national and international gatherings for the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, CAG, ICAI, ICSI, Equity Research Analysts, business schools, among others. He's audit committee chair on board of 3 public listed companies. Please put your hands together for Anand Bathiya. He also is the moderator of the Fireside Chat, by the way. The last, but definitely not the least, the founder of My Success Coach, a keynote speaker and an executive coach. He has addressed more than 450,000 individuals. You'll have to add the number here now. Individuals from more than 48 countries, and has spoken at multiple TEDx events. At 23, he was India's youngest coach and has authored 2 books, Be Invincible and the latest bestseller, Don't Shut Up. He works with celebrities, executives, entrepreneurs to help them achieve success, command a better presence, enhance their communication skills, and lead a life of abundance. He has conducted sessions for Google, Siemens, PwC, EY, Cisco, Diageo, IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Calcutta, among others. He's also a chartered accountant, CFA charter holder, and ex-strategy consultant. Please put your hands together for CM Mudit Yadav. Wow, I need water now. My God, look at the achievements of our speakers. Isn't it amazing? And I so wish that all of them had been around when I was a young chartered accountant like you, but I guess 2 of them weren't even born. So we would like to now present our esteemed speakers with a small token of our gratitude for coming here and addressing all of us. May I request Mir Bhai to please present a memento to Jayant Bhai on our behalf. May I request Vice President Chirag Bhai to please come and give the memento to Mudit. Narayan Bhai, please. Aha, that's lovely. Anand, over to you. The fire is lit for the evening.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Preeti Madam, for the introduction. Thank you, President Narayan Bhai, for our felicitation. It's always good to get the award before we begin, because then it kind of doesn't matter where it goes, right? We are done. But a very well-deserved ovation to each one of y'all for clearing one of the most competitive and challenging examinations that maybe at an international level, I would think that y'all have gone through. It still gives me goosebumps 13 years after passing my CA final to remember the day of my result. And I'm sure even for all of y'all, that result day is going to be etched in the memory forever. Either mom calls up or you see on the screen, that is going to be there forever. No one can take it from you. It's going to be with you, and it is your achievement for life. So congratulations once again, all of y'all. So when were the results out? Sometime in 15 July. So yes. So it's been like 1.5 months, 2 months almost. The feeling of being a CA is now sinking in slowly. Rather than asking questions as articles, people look to answers from you as chartered accountants. But I think now that the feeling is sinking in, I'm sure something else is brewing up in terms of what next. In terms of ab kya kare, as Narayanji Meerbai said, the example of Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, all of us also feel ab kya. And I think it's the beauty and the robustness of the course that it makes us do multiple things, or at least equips us to do multiple things. Like a doctor, a cardiologist, would you go for your brain problem to a cardiologist or to an ENT surgeon? He's a doctor, right? But to a CA, you would go for accounting, tax, GST, legal. There's no CA specializing in accounting. Have you heard? So CA is supposed to know all. And that is kind of a double-edged sword, right? It gives you so many options, sometimes confusing us that what we should do. But one should look at it from the perspective that it's a good problem to have. You can apply yourself to multiple things, see what you can do, and do some course correction in between. So we thought that we'll talk today about some of the questions that come to us when we have just passed out. All of us have passed out, so we can at least throw some light. You can see we are a slightly different age group as well. You can at least see 3 shades of gray on our crowns and bodies, if not 50. But the idea is that across generations and across what we do in our different fields, we would want to throw some insights into where we have seen our contemporaries who had passed out, let's say 10 years before, 15 years before, 40 years before, and where they have landed. Each one of you will have to take your own decision. But the idea here today is to give you food for thought, share some experiences so that the journey becomes that much more easier and you are wiser as a part of the process. So some questions that keep on coming is that practice or job, very classical, right? Practice karna hai ki job karna hai. Job karna hai to industry mein karna hai, big firm mein karna hai, boutique firm mein karna hai. A very relevant question on social media right now is work-life balance, 18 hours, 16 hours, 14 hours. So all those questions keep on coming. Family practice or not? Should I go into traditional practice or not? So we compiled all your questions. I think there were about 150, 170 questions. And we have devised certain themes around what we can talk about. We were slightly short on budget, so we don't have any fireside. And you have me as a moderator and a speaker. So bear with me on that. But we have Jayant Bhai and we have Mudit to also join me in this session over the next 45 minutes. Jayant Bhai, let me directly start with picking up your brain in terms of the topic today, which is skill up or scale up, and especially putting yourself in the shoes of the pass outs who have just recently qualified. What is it that in the opening remark you would like to give guidance to us?
So if I were to give a broad coverage in the opening remarks, what I'll do is, if you don't mind, I'll stand up for the simple reason that I want to see the reaction of the last guy who is laughing at what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, but don't worry. The cue has been taken from the earlier speakers, so I'll see the watch is right, clock is right next to me. The fact that I moved here doesn't mean that I'm going to hog the time, but we'll keep it like a fireside chat. But I like to see what the people at the back are smiling, especially because I'm the closest I've come to a rank is being amongst you. I was not a bright student, which should give you all hopes that you can certainly do much better than me. So before I begin, just a word of acknowledgement, couple of acknowledgements. In fact, first to the President, Vice President, Chairman of the committee for having me here, for considering me to be the appropriate choice to address people like you. I'm thankful. I thought it would not be out of place to mention, and Narayan Bhai made a mention of what the committee is doing. Let me make a small mention. I qualified 40 years back. At that time, one great piece of advice that my senior gave me, Uday was in the same firm as me. He said, if you want to practice, first thing you do, become a life member of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society. And believe me, my income was very low at that time. Anil Sathe, myself, we started the firm that thankfully exists even today. Both of us are continuing as partners there. We couldn't afford 2 life memberships. So we broke it up. You can check up from the record. In 1 year, Anil took his membership. In the second year, I took my membership, because life membership at that time was some astronomical sum of 600 rupees or so. So we couldn't afford that. But I think it has paid rich dividends, rich beyond imagination. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because I started off as an absolutely nondescript person, elated that I have passed one of the toughest exams in the world. And as Anand mentioned, I still remember 40 years later, not just the day I passed, the person who came and told me, Hamare zamane mein results used to be at Economic Times office, not put up somewhere, previous night. And the beauty is that that person who went to see my result had failed. But he came out and embraced me, Jayant, tu clear ho gaya. And that sense of euphoria is still there with us. And that euphoria of passing the CA exam, one of the most difficult exams in the world to crack. So it is something that you must remember, you must cherish, and I'm sure take forward in that manner. Why I'm mentioning it is that, as was again mentioned by Anand, what happens is that euphoria takes you, it gives you a high. And once you're off that high, then all those doubts start coming in. Kya karna hai? These are the dilemmas that you will face. All of us go through that. It's nothing unusual. But that is where organizations like this, your colleagues, your contacts, your network comes to your aid. I'm not pitching for BCA. I'm just giving my own example. As I said, starting from a nondescript person, in practice, I became a study circle convener. It got me into contact with many eminent personalities in the profession. It gave me the confidence that, yes, I can also do something. And I'll sort of try and take you in the next 10 minutes through a small journey of what I would like to share with you. I'm conscious that 40 years back seems 2 generations back, actually. So how much of what I say is relevant, not relevant, is for you to judge. One thing I'm certain, Narayan Bhai said that you will have answers. I'm of the opposite view. I'm going to raise more questions than the questions that you have put. And I can assure you, I don't have the answers. And that is the beauty of life. That after 40 years, and this is the bad news, having studied, cracked the best exam, the bad news is that your struggles are just starting. And you will remain a student for life. Because being a professional involves lifelong studies, whether you're in practice, job, whatever, or even if you go into business or stock market or whatever, ultimately you will realize that to be successful, you have to be a student for life. I passed my exams possibly because accounting standards didn't exist when I passed. So you might think, kya easy tha yaar us waqt. Irony was, I was on the accounting standards board when most of the 29 standards approximately were passed during 25 of the 29 standards were passed during my tenure on the accounting standards board. And I had to literally study each one of them by taking a whiteboard and writing down ki EPS ka calculation kaisa hoga and so on. So it is worse. At least in examinations, the situation is clear. Examiner jo kahega wahi sahi. You know, you might say that you are right, but finally it is the examiner who decides. The problem in the profession, I am putting all the problems before you, don't get discouraged. But the problem in the profession is that you have to decide all the answers and there is no right or wrong. Something determined few years later may determine whether you are right or wrong in your choices. So really that is the threshold from which I will take off. So let me give you 3 principles which I hope will solve all the questions that you have asked. I hope. I don't assure you that it will, but it will give you some indicator from an old man's thinking as to how perhaps one can tackle the problem. One principle I have learned, which has stood me by for so many years, is the first step towards attacking any problem is to first analyze and understand what the problem is. Solutions will come. Have you understood the problem? In fact, I was also on the, during my various tenures, I was on the Board of Studies, ICAI. And one of the things that we saw that actually everybody of us, every one of us puts in minimum 3 months, often studying 13, 14 hours a day. So is it correct to imagine that we didn't know the answers? No. The answer that we found after a good amount of research is everybody knew the answers. The point is what is put down on paper at that crucial time within those 3 hours, how it is put down, in what manner it is presented makes the difference. Every one of us knows. And I have experienced personally कि बाहर आने के अरे ये तो मालूम था. Okay. But then in that 3 hours didn't manage that. So that is why in life, in your professional life, all the answers are there with you. It's not that I'm going to give you the answers. Answers are with you. It's only whether you analyze the problem correctly and whether you come up with the right answer at the right time. Okay. So first and foremost, be absolutely self-assured that you have got the capacity to solve all these problems. There is no, if there is a problem, there is a solution. If you have a question in your mind, there is going to be a solution. The only answer to that question is, are you going to find a solution in time? And are you going to apply it and have the ability, the guts, sometimes applying certain solutions means taking a very contrarian stand. Are you going to have it within you to take that stand? That is what really defines. So let me come to the first of the principles. That at least this is what I would, sort of not very big principles. This is what I could distill in order to try and share with you some basic concepts that I had, which will also touch upon perhaps your issue about work-life balance, etc. But because that's very much in the news. And yes, Preeti, I must mention, I am one of the laggards that if anybody looks up on my LinkedIn profile, it's got just 2 lines. Not because I'm not tech savvy. The answer is I've been too busy. The great thing about to-do lists, my to-do list contains update LinkedIn profile. It's been carried forward for the last 4 or 5 years, I think, on my to-do list, but not onto my profile. So anyway, thank you for the introduction also, Preeti, because that was needed insofar as I was concerned, at least. If you search my LinkedIn profile, it says partner Gokhale and Sathe and very little else. But I think I've done something to speak about this. So the first thing that I would like to touch upon is the confidence and the ability to make choices. Okay. So confidence, of course, as I said, each of you have the answers within you. You don't require answers from me or from any of these persons, but it helps to have somebody give you a guidance in time to bolster or to reinforce the correctness of the choice that you are making. Okay. So our role, rightly described as mentors, we are not problem solvers. Problems you will solve yourself. You have to only take inputs. So you are a student for life. That is the first point. Oh, I have already finished 10 minutes. So let me quickly speed up because 3 points I have to touch upon. So the first thing, what I learned, I have been a great fan of cricket. I never wanted to be a CA, frankly. So that was accidental. So when you're looking at your career, and you'll see that I have continued to remain associated with cricket. So I'll give you a few examples. When you're making choices, there is always the possibility that you'll make them wrong. I'm a great admirer of Virendra Sehwag. How many of you like his batting? Okay. One of the principles is that you hit the ball that is to be hit. Never mind if you're on 195, you're on 5. If a ball deserves to be hit, it is to be hit. There is no sense of fear. There is a sense of freedom. And that is what should guide your decisions. There has to be absolute absence of fear, no fear of failure. Okay. The second point linked to that, there will be failures. You will. Coincidentally, preparing for this lecture, I was reminded when I was appearing for my final CA, and memory plays tricks. After so many years, I remembered that song. I don't know, my generation will remember it. You can check up on the YouTube. There is a song from a Rajesh Khanna film, which goes that, I can't sing, of course, but Zindagi ke safar mein guzar jate wo maqam, wo fir nahi aate. It sounds very negative, but I used to be humming that tune when I was walking to my exam center because I wanted desperately to pass. Okay. So wo maqam fir nahi aate, that is the opportunity I must take. And I managed. But the point is that sounds slightly negative, but you should not have, why I gave Sehwag's example or Dhoni's example, there cannot be fear of failure. If you try to hit a 6, you may go for glory, you may get out. But it is the fear of it. There is nothing to fear except fear itself, is what one of the great US presidents had said. So if you are afraid of taking the wrong choice, correct your thinking. You will make mistakes. You are bound to make mistakes in life. But thankfully, wo fir nahi aate does not apply in life. You got opportunities to take U-turns, Z-turns, come back. Couple of years in your life don't matter. When you are 66, which I am now, you realize 2 saal kya hai? It's a small, what should I say, a tolerable margin of error. So 2 years doesn't matter. You may spend 2 years doing something in your life, which actually you realize is not really what you wanted to do. No harm. So don't have a fear of failure. In fact, if you listen to, and I'll give you a hint. Okay, one other question I had to ask. Sorry, I'm taking a bit of time, Anand, but so much to share after 40 years. How many of you know bicycling? Put up your hands fast. Huh? Okay. How many of those people who know learned after the age of 25? Nobody. You all learned earlier. Why am I giving this example? Is it difficult? No. If you want to learn, you can learn. A person who doesn't know can still learn even today, but it doesn't happen. Why? Not because you can't use a bicycle. There is a fear of failure. After the age of 15, 20, 22, a person is more concerned कि कोई मुझे देखेगा तो क्या होगा, गिर गया तो क्या होगा. What prevents a person from learning is the fear of failure. Once you overcome that fear, if you decide, those of you who don't know bicycling and decide कि मैं अगले 6 महीने में learn करूंगा ही करूंगा, you will be able to manage. Why not? A 3-year-old kid can do it. Can't you? Of course you can. But it is the fear of failure that holds you back. So get over that, and then you will have nothing to fear in the rest of your career. So first, don't bother. And therefore, the last point I will touch upon in this matter of fear is Harsha Bhogle. You can check up on the YouTube. He has given a wonderful speech where he says that for certain army selections for commandos, they do not take persons who have not experienced failure, because you don't know how you will react when you face adverse situations. So fear of failure should be first driven out. So first point. Second point of the three, that many people have asked, should I be in practice? What is the element of success that I need to? What is the core, etc. So first is your choices. So C. The second is professionalism. If you're a professional, and when I say professionalism, I refer to the concept that as a professional, you are committed to deliver your best, irrespective of your discomforts, fees, etc. So once you're a professional, and that is the core of success, whether you are in practice or in industry. If you deliver, nobody else is bothered about anything. I can tell you, in 40 years, nobody has ever asked me, am I really a chartered accountant? Because they are concerned with what I deliver. They are not concerned with the degree that hangs in the wall on my office wall. Okay. So what is important is, and I'm speaking about this from a broader concept, that how do you become professional? You have to have empathy. That is, you should feel for your client, whether in job or in whether in practice or in job. You must feel for that, and that is how you will build a relationship. Many of my colleagues in senior years also, I try to tell them that actually people don't come to you because you're the most intelligent. Think about it yourself. I'll not go into the details because time will be a constraint. But how do you select a doctor? Is it the person who got the highest rank? One of the factors is he close to your premises? Does he see you quickly, or he makes you wait in his waiting room for 4 hours? Does he give an overdose of antibiotics, or does he actually bother to analyze you? So in practice or in job, it is not what your intelligence is, but how you relate to the individual and tailor your services, whether as an employee or as a professional, to the needs of the other person. Once you answer this question, your second aspect of how do you deal with this will be answered automatically, because what you need to do is to ensure that you have empathy for the person you're dealing with. And let me say that there needs to be a lot of understanding of people for this. And this is where I find chartered accountants a little bit deficient on. Because what we tend to believe, काम तो मैंने कर दिया, but काम करने से नहीं होता है. It should touch the person whom you are dealing with. And that is where the difference between moderate success and excellent success is built. So don't rely only on your intelligence. Every one of us is intelligent. If we have passed this exam, that is a given. How you deliver is what makes the difference. So I'll leave that. I've got lots of other things to share, which in the question answer we'll share. And last but not the least, if you can think of, and I'm going to rattle off quickly, and then if some of you can note down or remember, I'm sure all of you all are very good at that. I'm going to rattle off a series of items, your priorities. Once you get that listed, you will have the ability to decide for yourself the answers to all your questions. So let me rattle off a few. So what can be your priorities? Earning money, status in society, career advancement, your spouse, family, your to-be spouse. Most of you will not have one today, but is it a priority? Certainly, yes. In my life, that was one of the earlier priorities than studies. I had fixed up my marriage before I was intermediate CA also. So, but it acted as an incentive. It acted. My friends library में बैठते थे. My friends used to say, यार picture जाते हैं आज बहुत बोर हो गया. I used to say, नहीं यार शादी करनी है. शादी करनी है because I was worried कि घर के लोग शादी पहले ही उसकी लड़की की शादी पहले ही तय कर देते थे before I passed, which I could not imagine. So these are things which actually are priorities. So work-life balance is also a priority. Retirement target, although you are far from that, at some stage it becomes a priority. What do you have as your earning, your leadership, power, fame? All these are priorities. So can somebody tell me quickly which are the top 3 priorities that you have? No personal this thing. Anybody give me 3 top priorities? I've given so many. Media attention, like you have a person who is on the Insta and so on. What could be your priority? Okay, let me not ask you a personal question, but let me put it this way. Priorities are not standard. What are my priorities? What were my priorities when I was studying? Need not be yours, should not be yours. They will depend on your economic background, your family circumstances, whether you are having an affair with somebody. Like I said, I had clear priority. Shadi karni hai, jaldi karni hai, to I have to pass quickly. My priority. So you will have your own priorities. How do you judge success? So many of your questions are related to the fact you want to succeed. But is there a measure of success? Let's say Mr. Ratan Tata sort of inherited a company. Mr. Mukesh Ambani inherited a company. My boss, whom I consider one of my ideals, he was a person who had a small practice. But in his childhood, he was abandoned. He used to go, in Marathi, we have a phrase, Var laun jevna. So he used to go to different charitably minded persons. One day per week, he would have lunch at that person's place. He qualified as a CA, built up a practice, and had students like us who were trained like his children. Who is more successful? There is no standard concept of success. That concept depends on 2 things: where you started from and where you have reached. So perhaps, with no negative aspersion on anybody, perhaps if Ratan Tata started here and he reached here, it may be less than where my boss started from over here and he reached here. So the distance traveled is far different. What is your gauge of success? Also depends on your priorities. So you get your thoughts clear. What are your priorities? And they are not for life. शादी करनी थी, शादी हो गई. अभी मेरी priority अलग है. Then the next priority comes how to mold your children, how to influence them. Various priorities, they keep changing. So what is your priority today will not remain your priority 2 years down the line. What is your measure of success will also keep changing. The answers will keep changing. So in simple words, you have got choices, you've got professionalism, you've got priorities. All of these are in a state of flux for the entire life. How you tackle a problem at that point of time and how you measure the success of your solution is all internal. I cannot say कि अच्छा तुमको रैंक नहीं मिला तो फिर तो क्या है यार, इसको रैंक मिला तुमको नहीं मिला. I was one of the guys like many of you who have not got a rank. Doesn't matter. It has not held me back in any way, because what I wanted to achieve, I can say I'm satisfied with the success that I've achieved. So therefore, not to dishearten the persons who have got a rank, you have struggled, but I am saying that those who have not got could be due to different factors, due to different backgrounds, different situations. I claim, although not truly, but I claim कि मेरा intention ही rank मिलाने का, मुझे तो India के लिए खेलना था. So it is grapes are sour sort of thing, but nonetheless. So I'll wind up with that as an initial point, that don't bother measuring by other people's standards. Your success is measured by your own standards. Your answers will come for yourself. So if I were to tell you, ki nahi, nahi, go for management consulting, I may be entirely wrong. It may not be suited to you. So your answers, you have to search for yourself. Gurus are only guides. I may be a guru, but I can only guide you. The ultimate direction has to be selected by you and you alone. Wish you all success in that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayant. No, that's fine. I think as you were speaking, I was just checking the questions that we completed. So I think we have finished most of them. And when you told me you have been married for so long, it was like a moral obligation to allow you to speak here. So So there was one more survey in the form that happened, right? Practice, employment. So the outcome of the survey is that 8% of y'all said that y'all want to get into practice. 32% said that y'all want to get into employment. And 60% said undecided, which was expected. But Mudit, I think share us your thoughts in terms of how good or bad is it to be undecided? Because it's natural, right? There are so many options. What do you do? But quickly share us your thought in terms of how do you see this?
Yeah. Sir, I will sit and speak because the less I know about what the backbenchers are doing, the better. How many of you took the Mumbai local to come to Churchgate today? Quite a number of people. खाली थी? एक आध डब्बे तो आप लोगों ने भर लिए होंगे मुझे लगता है. खाली थी आज. You know, imagine this was an event at BCS scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Monday. कैसी होती? Imagine the scene. और फिर आप स्टेशन पे खड़े तो आपको लगता काश घुसने मिल जाए ना खाली. काश घुसने मिल जाए. And then once you go in, you would be waiting for that person who's hanging on the fourth seat to leave so that you can hang on the fourth seat yourself. कोई choice नहीं उसमें. You get the fourth seat after 4 stations, you are the happiest person in the world for the next 3 stations. But then you're thinking, ये बाजू वाला कब हटेगा? Right? Today's experience might have been different. You got into the train and you thought, ये 2 window खाली दिख रही हैं. ट्रेन इस तरफ जा रही तो हवा ऐसे आएगी तो उधर, लेकिन वो उधर ऑलरेडी बैठी है, ऐसा देख के लग रहा है शायद अंधेरी है, दादर उतर जाएगी तो उसके बाजू में बैठ जाता हूँ ताकि मुझे वो विंडो सीट मिल जाए. You know, there was a moment of confusion that you went through when you got into the local today as compared to as you would when you get into a local on a Monday morning. So if 60% of you are confused right now about what you want to do, I just have to say that confusion is a privilege because you have the resources, because you have the intelligence, because you have the power, because you have the freedom. अगर आपके पास confusion नहीं है, which you probably would have if you didn't pursue this course, you might have taken any job that you were offered. No confusion, it's like the fourth seat. Hand to mouth, you're getting food on the table, probably that was enough. But you struggled, you became all chartered accountants to be confused. To be confused, I have all these different options that I can choose from. And now I got to work on it. The challenge is that the people around you expect you, at least now, अब तो सीए बन गए तो पता होना चाहिए ना क्या करना है आपको. नहीं पता है. अभी दिवाली आ रही है, relatives वगैरह इकट्ठे होंगे. And all our relatives are expert career counselors. Some relatives are expert marriage counselors also. Anyway, and they will ask you, "Beta, आगे का क्या सोचा है?" अच्छा, you have become very good at pretending that you know. आगे का क्या सोचा है? Right? I want you to know that it is okay to be confused. And that if you are confused, that's great because now you will take the opportunity to experiment. यहाँ से experiment. अभी तक your life was a straight line. आपने School pass के for me it was straight because science के औकात नहीं थी, commerce में आ गया by default. Commerce में क्या अच्छा CA कर लिया. It was a straight line. There was no decision to be made as such. यहाँ से decision शुरू होते हैं. तो यहाँ से the experiments in your life begin. If you treat them as experiments. Sir was talking about freedom versus failure. I think that was a very important part. I was making notes. So it depends whether you're treating your life as a series of experiments going forward. How many of you are first attempt chartered accountants? First attempt chartered accountants. I have huge respect for you, but I am more worried for you. About the example that Sir took, because you haven't seen failure. And this is not me saying that I am worried for you. I'm a first attempt chartered accountant, so I know I struggled with this going forward. I did not experiment because I could not afford failures. ये चीज जो है, I want to see the outcome before the experiment. Imagine a scientist, if he knows the outcome before the experiment, there will be confirmation bias. You know what a confirmation bias is? Is that you do the experiment in accordance to achieve the result that you'd already thought would come. So that was a problem. A research says that architects who graduated at the top of their class were far less innovative, created far less newer things in newer ways as compared to the people who were further lower in the class. So academic success is not directly correlated with success in your careers. It is correlated, but it is not directly correlated. And so going forward from here, you got to start thinking on what are my experiments here. How many of you have been asked, what are your long-term goals? Long-term, 10 saal ke baad, 15 saal ke baad. You've been asked, what are your long-term goals? I personally don't appreciate that question because I feel, what was your, I think like goals are not static. Goals are like living, breathing organisms, like jellyfish. Seen jellyfish? You go to a goal, you'll never be where you want to be because once you're there, you want to be somewhere else. Right? In fact, right now, Sir was talking about the feeling of euphoria when you become chartered accountants, but now that feeling of euphoria is dissolving into a feeling of uski job lag gayi, uska interview aa gaya, uska to yahan se itne sare CA ban gaye. That euphoria doesn't last long because that's how as human beings we've made progress because we don't sit on our laurels, and that's great. So you should know that your goals are living, breathing organisms. They'll keep moving and you'll keep moving towards them. So you don't need to marry a long-term goal. कि ये चीज मैंने सोची थी, अब मैंने उस चीज को change कर दिया है. So that's the third thing, and I'll just wrap it up in a minute and we'll go into the fireside chat. The two final things I want to talk about is, so far you've been going deep. You began with your first level of CA foundation, and then CA inter, and then CA final. You went deeper into subjects, right? So you've been growing what is called as vertical knowledge. So you've been growing vertically. You've been digging deeper. कि इस चीज में हमें better होना है. But here onwards, and I was talking to Narayan sir just a few minutes ago, what really matters is your horizontal knowledge. What is horizontal knowledge? It is everything beyond the deep knowledge. So अगर आप यहाँ पे आए, how many of you are here with a friend? At least one friend. How many of you travel with a friend? And keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if you are sitting with that friend. See, I don't need to speak any further. आप इतने ये friends को आप जानते हो, they're good people. At least सामने तो बोलना पड़ेगा. But if you're here and you travel with these friends and you go back with these friends and you don't make one new connection, that is a big problem. Because here onwards, the skills that you need to succeed broaden, not just deepen. So यहाँ से जाने के पहले, my final invitation to you is, whatever we'll speak today, it's probably available in a much better form online in some lecture delivered by some PhD from Harvard who dedicated his life to answering one question. What really matters here is if you go back with 5 new connections. सोच के चलिए कि यहाँ से निकलने के पहले, I'll be connected on LinkedIn with sir and 4 other people. You'll be connected with 5 new people. Is that a promise? 5 new people. तब निकलेंगे and it'll be awkward at first. बात करूं नहीं करूं, बात करूं नहीं करूं, जाके सीधा बात कर लो ना. Especially my first attempt people. Not everything happens in the first attempt.
Now we all know Mudit, right? And what he's made up of. Yeah. So Mudit, I think your third point actually touched the next question, which is a general quandary that chartered accountants have between either being a specialist or being a generalist. There is merit in being, let's say, inch wide, but a mile deep. Or as you said, in terms of scraping the ground, but the entire pitch of cricket. So even in employment or in practice, this question is there that should I be a specialist? Maybe not generalist, but versatile in that sense. What is your sense and how does one develop the career strategy around generalization or specialization?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant question, Anand bhai, and I'm sure, sir, and you will be able to answer this better. But in my view, it's this is ultimately it is a move towards specialization. Nobody starts a specialist and move toward becoming a generalist. People start generalists and move towards becoming specialists. In fact, with all my clients in consulting who I speak with, they are dividing their practices industry wise today. कि ठीक है, ये हमारा oil and gas sector में ये consulting करते हैं, which was not the case when I spoke to these people probably a decade ago. It was consulting, probably okay, M&A consulting, but okay, M&A consulting in oil and gas sector. So they're moving towards more specialization. In fact, what I noticed with some firms, including I think, sir, a couple of big four firms also, is they've divided floors in offices based on industries. तो हमारी ऑयल एंड गैस की टीम थर्ड फ्लोर पे बैठती है, उसमें M&A, टैक्स और ये जो भी कंसल्टिंग है, दे सिट टुगेदर. So my thought is that it is a march towards specialization, but it is a journey. So you don't have to be worried about beginning a specialist, and you can begin a generalist and take that journey with you.
Yeah, a slightly different perspective, Mudit, to look at it is that you rightly quoted about consulting or being in practice, where the idea is to move towards specialization. The general sense is also is that if you are going into employment and you aspire to become, let's say, a CFO, because all of us in employment should aspire to be there. Being a CEO is a matter of all different mechanics there. But from a CFO perspective, if it is a tax specialist and not knowing about accounts, strategy, marketing, etc., my probability of becoming a CFO from a tax specialist is slightly lesser than maybe having a slightly more versatile overview from an employment perspective. So generally employment, one would think be versatile, know a little bit more so that you can go up the ladder. From a practice perspective, certainly it's a move towards specialization. Jayant bhai, happy to hear your thoughts.
No, I think I agree with you that one needs to be, and what Mudit said earlier, I would just like to add that at a very early stage in your career, don't aspire to become specialist for the simple reason that you don't know where your passion lies. Nobody can tell you ki, like somebody may say, "Arey, aajkal to oil and gas sector mein bahut kamai hai," but you don't know 5 years down the line what is going to happen. So these are the years where you absorb knowledge like a sponge, whatever area it may be. You decide, again, don't look at what I gave you the list of priorities. Is money making your priority? I think it should not be. What you aspire for, ultimately you will be extremely successful if you pursue your passion. It could be even something like filmmaking, but you must follow your passion for that. You can't become a filmmaker overnight, but what you need to do is to identify areas, and there I mean generalist. I'm not speaking of filmmaking in the literal sense. Absorb as much knowledge as possible. See where your passion lies. You may look into auditing, accounting, technical issues of book building, financial markets, whatever it may be. See where your passion takes you and then start focusing on that. So that will be, according to me, a much better way to go about it, and give a few years. That's why I said first 1 or 2 years, don't bother. That's how I would look at it.
Interesting. Moving on, Mudit, and again, this one is for you in terms of, you spoke about experimentation, and experimentation by default means that there's a probability of failure and we may need to do a course correction. How easy or difficult it is to, let's say, move from employment to practice or vice versa? How does one look at it in terms of being frugal so that tomorrow, if there is a need to change, we can easily do it?
Yeah. In terms of experiments, some experiments that you might do are low hanging fruits kind of experiments, and some experiments that you do have a significant impact on your resources. And the most important resource that you have is time. The other thing is to see time as a resource. When you think of taking up your first job, for example, you think of it as an irreversible decision. You're very worried about that first job. Ki kaisa hoga, will it serve what I want to do? Kya ho raha hai? And there are a lot of questions, and rightly so. But if you begin to think of it as an experiment, because of all these options that I have available, I take this first job, and if it doesn't work out, I will know this doesn't work out for me. And in that pursuit, I'll probably lose 1 to 2 years of this resource. This is the cost of this experiment. Am I okay for it? I think if you start to look at it like that, it doesn't sound like a big deal. Whether it is easy to move from practice to industry, industry to practice, it is not. It is possible. If Samsung can go from being a clothes manufacturer to a tank manufacturer to be manufacturing phones and TVs in a matter of 2 generations, I think in 1 generation you can switch from tax to audit, right? So it's not easy, but you have to see what is a low-hanging fruit baby step experiment you can take. For example, if you want to move from industry to practice, एक example मिल रहा हूँ, आपने job कर लिया 1-2 साल, आपको लग रहा है practice में ही मजा आ रहा है, शायद आए. Then what do? Leaving a job and starting a practice is a high-risk experiment. What's a low-risk activity you can do right now to simulate that experiment? On the weekends, can you go to one chartered accountant and say, would you like me to support you in business development and getting in clients, whatever it is, on a non-monetary way, close to you? So that will, what is the cost of the experiment? Your weekends for 6 months, that's 24 weekends. At the end of these 24 weekends, I will go back and see if this experiment is working out for me. Okay, this was enjoyable. Then you take the next step. What is the next higher step that I can take towards this? So you keep increasing the levels of experiments. I truly think some people often send me a message on LinkedIn. I have quit my job to follow my passion doing this. What is your advice for me? My advice to them is you should have taken the advice 3 months ago before you quit. It might work out for them. I'm not saying my version of the truth is the only truth. All I'm saying is that you have a scenario analysis sense of and do it very surgically, mathematically. What is it that I can simulate right now in a small way to understand that that big experiment is worth the leap? And that big experiment might fail. It might cost you resources, but at the end of it, you come out with a learning that will help you take a much safer next experiment.
Wonderful. So when this question came up, I actually went 13 years behind to see that the students who had passed out with me, because they had taken different courses, some went into practice, some went into employment, and where they have landed right now. And 2 themes clearly emerged. And one is that the BFSI sector, if you have got employment in banking, financial services, it's you'll rotate within them. You know, ICICI Bank, Citibank, HSBC, etc., etc. I couldn't find many precedents of people moving from a BFSI role into, let's say, industry or further so into practice. Very rare. And second theme was that for the people who had finished 3 years of practice, I didn't see many of them moving. Most of the people who moved out of practice was in the first 1,000 days. We colloquially say that practice is like a 1,000-day year. How much you would earn in employment in like 1 year, the first 1,000 days in practice would take you. But having crossed that journey, I couldn't see anyone who has then gone back to industry or then gone back to employment. So that's the kind of the flavor which I had. Jayant, happy to hear from you.
I agree with you that this is the reality, but this is again the reality like you're learning a bicycle. Actually, it is very easy. And I had just noted down that, frankly speaking, a switch between industry and practice between the ages of 25 to 45 is very, very doable. It is not done. I agree with Anand entirely. It is not done because you're afraid of falling. Is it really what you want to do? And then it is worth it. Then you take the risk, provided you are suitably equipped. I don't say take a risk with blindfolds. Most people have not done so. Like in India, if you see, I used to always, when I was much younger, I don't know whether you have heard of Henry Kissinger. He was Secretary of State under President Nixon. Prior to that, he was a professor at a college. And subsequent to his stint as a Secretary of State, which is equivalent to our foreign minister, he went back to teaching. Raghuram Rajan also has done something similar, and so on. We are gradually moving into that. So my point is that it is possible. It's not been done so far. Anand is entirely right, but I don't believe your generation is going to get bogged down by that. If you feel it is worth it, if you have your targets accordingly, surely it's a chance that you could take up to the age of 45. After 45, it becomes difficult.
Yeah.
Past that stage. But okay, just to illustrate, sorry. I said when I qualified, there were no accounting standards. AS1 and AS2 were the only recommendatory standards. I moved from there. I went into tax. My passion was ki palki wala ke jaisa practice karna chahiye. That was my ambition. I wrote a book on TDS. Last 8 years, I'm not even capable of filing my own income tax return. I switched entirely to audit. It is possible. It is possible that you can make a mid-course correction, and I did that in 2020, so 20 years ago. It's possible. It requires relearning, reinventing the wheel, everything, but it is very much possible. I would recommend it highly for anybody who has got a urge in that direction. That's how I look at it.
Interesting. There's one very actionable question, Mudit, and again, you can share some thoughts here. What are the other relevant courses that one should pursue post-CA? And how does one go about that? CFA, MBA, all these names are there.
Yeah. How many of you have this question? What other courses we can pursue after with CA? And I think this is, sir, a great testimony to the learning mindset that you presented, because CAs of today are willing to pursue more courses beyond this, as compared to perhaps before, where CA was the ultimate course, and beyond that. So this is, I think, first, it's good wins that you're thinking of various courses, and you've probably done your research and you have a bunch of courses that you have in mind. Let me divide it into buckets. One is MBA. Second is probably CFA. Third is ACCA or CPA. Fourth is others. Let me begin with others. Others courses are good for skill building, probably good for a resume point. I am, in my limited wisdom, not sure if any of them are a make or break. They'll not take you 0 to 100. They'll take you 0 to 2, 2 to 4, 2 to 4 to 6, which is not bad, but that is something that you can have in mind. Third, CPA and ACCA kind of courses are either if you're mandated, and if you join a practice which is looking at accounting and auditing for those geographies, or you want to shift physically to those geographies, those kind of courses will matter. Then the CFA. CFA is a course which it is a correspondence course, and if you want to move into investing and finance, it is a good course to have, and it has globally, it has value. I also think that for anyone who's cleared chartered accountancy, CFA is not a very difficult exam to clear. Having said that, do not expect that you will clear it without studying, because there are aspects to the exam, which especially maths and some deeper economics, portfolio management helps me, because it is expanding one subject, let's say SFM, into 7 or 8 subjects. So definitely it is going deeper. So you will have to study, but it is not that difficult for a chartered accountant, I believe, to pick it up and take it forward. Again, if you're going into investment or finance, it might be relevant. Finally is MBA. How many of you are I'm not saying you're sure, but even if you're considering MBA as an option for you going forward? Okay, I think there's still a sizable number. I could probably say 25 or 30 hands. If as a chartered accountant, you have to do an MBA, either you do it abroad or in India. Okay? Wherever you do it, if you're not doing it from the top 10 institutes of the country, you're wasting your time and money. आपको अगर top 10 institute में मिलता है, great. If not, then no big deal. Now MBA में, again, will it add a lot of skills beyond what you have as a chartered accountant? One of my students in IIM Bangalore, who was a CA rank holder, his name is Jinit Dharia. He said that, and sir, surprisingly, the professor for accounting there, he's a chartered accountant, and he comes in the class and he says, day one accounting class. There are a few chartered accountants, including rank holder Jinit. And of course, you know, in IIM Bangalore class, you have engineers and doctors, especially engineers from IITs, etc. He says, a chartered accountant has never topped my class. And that was surprising to me, because we have spent 5 or 6 years becoming experts at it, and some of our counterparts will actually start studying 3 golden rules of accounting today. How is it that it's because they are not banking on their previous knowledge? They think like scientists. So what an MBA will really help you do is help you think like a scientist and expand, जो मैं horizontal knowledge की बात कर रहा था, expand your connections. You will know a lot of things beyond just the subjects that you've studied. So I think that is the biggest value of an MBA, not so much of what you will learn in the books. I think most of it is you've already addressed.
Absolutely agreed. Yes.
Let me just add a quick word. I entirely agree with what Mudit has said. And in fact, I share his point about MBAs teaching in the management institutions going into the top 10, entirely in agreement. The one thing I would like to just add is learning is a self-driven exercise. What all these qualifications will do is only open doors. After that, it is your performance that matters, what you deliver. And therefore, keep in mind, if you want to pursue qualification, like he said, in some jurisdictions, CPA might be necessary, or I have knowledge of IFRS is mandated. That's a different ballgame altogether. But otherwise, keep your targets in mind, and then it's not really learning that is going to be driving you. It's only your opening of doors. So which door you want to open will determine whether you want to go for that course. It's not knowledge. Knowledge can be acquired yourself.
Yeah. So just a couple of additional thoughts, actionable thoughts is that, I mean, you know, most of us have learned that finance is the lifeblood. It's there in every industry. So is management, and maybe so is marketing. These 3 were kind of there in every industry. The 4th one emerging or has emerged perhaps is technology. It's there in every part of business, whatever and wherever you all will get into. We have a blind spot in some of these modern emerging technologies. And if you get a chance, hook on to some of these courses which are now available online on Coursera, Google Garage, etc. in terms of understanding metaverse, in terms of understanding Web 3.0. I interview 10 chartered accountants every month. But if I see a CV which says that he knows about metaverse and he has done this course on blockchain, I would think that, yes, it makes sense for me to absorb him. So because my clients need that. And even in your employment, if you have this technology edge with your CV, it helps a lot. And second, if you are doing or planning to go for practice, try and do a course or a modulation on practice management. Unfortunately, in our CA course, we don't have a topic nor a mention of practice management. It's a science. There's the new course that the institute is launching. And one of the suggestions that BCS gave is that we should have a module or at least a section on practice management. We jump into the practice and then we think that practice is filing returns and signing the auditor's report. That's not the case. You'll have to plan your practice. It's like a management. There's a lot of guidance over there. And if you can do a short stint on practice management, it will help you going there in your practice world. Quickly to the next question, Mudit, is a very interesting one. I did not get a placement in the current ICI campus. It was disappointing. What should I now do? And what is the ideal initial package that I should expect from my job?
So the second question, definitely everybody has. No point asking for a show of hands. Regarding the first question, when I qualified, I wanted to get into strategy consulting. And everybody I knew told me that it is not possible for CS to get into strategy consulting, which it's which statistically is true. Very few CAs would be able to get into strategy consulting, and so I did not get the relevant shortlists in the campus. So here's what I did: is I made a goal to apply to 10 strategy consulting jobs / reach out to 10 strategy consulting partners, directors, or managers every single day, and literally cold emailing or sending them a LinkedIn message, in which, sir, the first 2-3 lines were customized, the rest 10-12 lines were copy paste. अच्छा संभाल के करना, because आप अजीत को रमेश लिख दोगे, so double check. All that door is closed forever. Okay. So when you're doing that, double check. Anyway, so 10 emails every single day. Most emails, etc., do not get a response. So by 11th day, it was 110 emails, messages, resumes sent, and partners, directors approached across India. On the 12th day, that was 120. But I received a message from PwC Consulting, from a message that I'd sent on day 3. I went on the website, saw who is the practice leader. It was his email ID mentioned. I just sent him a 2-3 lines customized, baki copy paste message that this is who I am, etc. And it just said, would you like to come in for an interview? 13th day was the interview. 15th day I got placed. 25th day I was working at PwC. I think the only challenge is most of us do not go to the extent of applying to 120 jobs to get that one job. I treat it as a volume game. So if you do not get selected in campus, I don't think your doors close there. You have a degree which is far more recognized. But what's important is that you treat it as a volume game. And like sir said, there has to be empathy. Because you apply somewhere or because you send somebody a message, do not expect them to respond. They owe you nothing. They owe you nothing. लेकिन अगर आप 2-3 line customize करते हो, that shows them that you took the effort to look at their journey and you address those. And we can talk separately about वो 2-3 line में आप क्या कर सकते हो. That is important. But that's the answer to the first question. Second, what is the kind of salary package you can expect? I don't know if it is any different now, sir, but what I understand is for most fresher CAs, they have a set band. And it is usually sometimes it's separate for rankers, sometimes it's not, but wo band mein hi aapko initial ek wo milega, and you don't have to be very disappointed about where that is, because it might differ vastly ki aap kisi choti company mein ja rahe ho aur aapko acha role mil raha hai. You might start out much lower as compared to aap kisi one of my colleagues many years ago, she went into debt syndication. She was offered 5.5 lakh rupees 4 years ago. She was very disappointed because some of her friends at EY, etc., were offered 8.5-9 lakhs. Her latest package 5 years later was with bonus with 48 lakhs, which is not bad, especially going from 5 lakhs to 48 lakhs. I would say she was probably making more than 90% chartered accountants who are 5 years into their qualification. So don't measure your first role at the first criteria, like sir mentioned priorities. I noted many of them. Let the first priority not be money. It is a priority for sure. Let it not be the first priority for your first role.
Absolutely. And I think there's also supply demand here, right? Because when 25,000 people pass, there is that supply side post that result for a month or maybe month and 2. But jobs come in at regular frequency every month, etc. So a little bit of waiting for that right opportunity, reaching out, and you should be having your job. Yes, sir.
Throw some light if you have. Maybe right now? No, right now or later on. So I'll give you quickly, because I know. Yeah, okay. So what Narayan Bhai is mentioning, basically there is a huge field opening up. I do conduct some lectures. Some of you might eventually join that also, because those are online for ICAI. I'm one of the faculty over there. I strayed into this line. Sometimes careers can't be charted. They actually happen to you. I was chairman WRC. Let me give you a bit of a background, and then I'll come to the question was, what is the potential in accounting for, say, defense, railways, etc. These are huge areas. And I give a whole lecture of 3 hours on the potential for in that area. That's of course conducted by the institute, but I'll try and quickly sum up, and I'll also tell you how I strayed into that line. Okay. If you see globally, almost that means in some of the advanced economies, including South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, where we always compare ki unke idhar kya chal raha hai. 25% of their chartered accountants are employed in what is called public sector over there. Public sector doesn't mean steel authority, etc. Like in India, public sector is government, semi-government. Why? Because they are handling the largest amount of finance in all social support economies, including Switzerland, etc. There's a huge sector over there. India is just waking up to that. So a lot of accounting reforms are going on in railways because Piyush Goyal ji was there as Minister for Railways. And ever since we have started into that, and I was fortunate to get into it. Our firm did some execution. There's a lot of potential. How did I stray into it? And that's why I say you can't chalk out. There's a very humorous story. I was chairman WRC. There was a session which I was told कि आपको institute ने बोला कि करना है. There was a direction from the Central Council कि you have to conduct a program on government accounting. Nobody was willing to come over there. So as a matter of prestige of WRC, I got around some people because election लड़ना है तो सब लोगों को साथ में लेना पड़ता है. So I got 20 heads to sit over there, and nobody was willing to chair the session because nobody was interested. So I said, okay, I'll chair the session. And as I chaired it, I learned something new, and I realized that there is nobody doing this. And I strayed into that field. And I waited 4 years. I didn't get a single job in that area. And I can mention in a closed audience like this, the first job that I got was not because of my capability. First job that I got was Thane Municipal Corporation. The biggest selling point is I told, and who are my competitors? The firm he worked with, the other couple of big firms amongst the big four. And there was, say, from one of the big four, the person who came in was some Mr. Muralidharan, etc., who later on became a good friend, Tamilian person. So I realized, yaar, ye apna kuch kaam nahi banne wala hai. So I went into the commissioner's cabin for an interview. I was one of the smallest guy over there. And I threw the one punch that I could. I said, sir, I have seen your vouchers. They are all in Marathi. Marathi is my mother tongue. 80% of my staff is Maharashtrian. I think I'll be able to do a job better than any of the big four. And I landed that job. And one thing after the other, I'm still into government accounting. I'm now advising Ministry of Defense. And I can tell you there is a huge potential. So it was not my plan. It just happened. But you have to take your opportunities as they come. Yeah. So I would suggest it's a big area. Look into it.
Yeah, absolutely, sir. And just some facts or statistics. When I was beginning to do CA, one of my cousins had already become a CA. It was in 2002. ICICI Bank at that point in time offered him a job for annual package of 4.5 lakhs. When I passed in 2008, the largest of the big four offered me 5.5 lakhs. Today we are in 2022. Maybe the packages are around 8-9 lakhs. I don't know what's the reason, but maybe that is the range. Even if you look at a basic inflation from 2002, 4.5 lakhs by that contemporary bank, to 2022, maybe 9 lakhs, it's a 2x kind of a jump. 7 saal mein to at 7% interest, money gets doubled. So there is a lot of supply which is there. We have to be cognizant of that. But as Mudit said, once you get into it, the scaling up and catch up is much faster in terms of reaching to, let's say, 50 lakh in 5 years is also a possibility. So maybe you may have to enter at these price points and then prove yourself as you go forward. So last question again, before we take some questions from the floor. An interesting question is, how does one view joining his or her family practice? A lot of us, maybe a second generation chartered accountants, and your sense will help.
Yeah. As I was sharing informally, I have been usually unsuccessful in trying to have a family practice. Both my children, who I felt were capable of doing CA, expressed total reluctance to do CA. They've gone into different fields and are happy in their own field. But when you get into a family practice, there are two things that you need to remember, and what my son taught me on that. एक तो he said कि तुमच्या गादीवर बसायचं नाहीये. In Marathi, that means he doesn't want to just follow the same stream, which is quite understandable. The young generation must make their own mark. So possibly you have to take the advantages of a built-up practice, which brings along with it a reputational advantage, a setup, and the ability to experiment. What Mudit said becomes doubly true. You've got far greater ability to experiment and try your new stuff, and then make your mark in your own way. So I am all for having second generation, third generation firms. I am very much in support of that, although I might have not been successful in that area, but I still believe that there is something good in that. But you must take care not to simply replicate what your father or your grandfather is doing. You must make a mark yourself. And that is what I believe will take not just you, but the entire firm on the much steeper incremental gradient. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely, sir. And I think from a family practice perspective, because I am also a second generation practitioner. So one thing that stuck with me is that, whenever the seniors would have started, they would be having, let's say, some kind of an aspiration that there is a legacy to continue. And as we know, practice is like growing a mango tree. It takes 20 years. It's not just a marathon, but it's a relay marathon from that perspective, which kind of grows. The largest of the firms today are 150, 175 years old, if you go and do their research. So not just family, but if you have a succession plan in place, it really helps. The second is any practice is a people's play. You'll have to need to be a people's person. You'll have to have the wavelength with your partners, with your team members. I would assume that in a family setup, you can have that much more in a better manner when you have the same value system, you have the same culture, and gira to khichdi mein hi hai kind of a structure wherein you can do much better. So I'm completely pro for family practice. And one thing that we hear in Karan Johar's nepotism, right? It's one of the things, but maybe the edge of nepotism is blunted in a CA profession or a legal profession is because one needs to pass the examination. Even the son of the president of ICI would need to make sure he passes, goes through the drill, and then comes and joins the family practice. So that filters to a large extent any kind of unwanted candidates coming into it. And that's maybe one of the reasons why you have large family practices nowadays. Mudit, you want to add anything? Wonderful. So
Yeah, you just touched upon a very important point, and it was one of the questions, but I'll touch upon it very quickly because it also dealt with the point that Anand mentioned, that ultimately, whether it is in job or in practice, what he said is building relationship. I spoke about that initially. What is now, the newfangled thing is team building, etc. in corporates. Ultimately, it is a derivative of relationships, empathy, etc. You have to carry everyone, not just your clients, but also your people with you. And that is something where soft skills, I feel that, some of you would have cursed whoever brought in that concept of mandatory, what is that? GMCS. I'm the person responsible. Because I honestly believe that chartered accountants are lacking, and sometimes we fail to introspect on this. We are severely lacking in soft skills. And that is something that you need to build. Mudit is a prime example of somebody who's built it up, because, and it's not just public speaking or publicity. It is much beyond that. It is that empathy. It is the ability to work as a team, to carry people with you, to share your successes with your team members and not take credit for yourself. This becomes all the more important in family-led practices, because you may be the top person, but your whole team has worked for that, and you must share the credit for that as you go along. And that is what builds success in the long run. So I thought I'll just end with that always remember that you represent the tip of the iceberg, but success is owed due to a team effort, and you must be the first person to acknowledge and recognize that in a positive manner. I think that is the culture, both in our families, in BCAs, and in industry as well as in practice that I have seen. And I'm sure it will help you go forward in a much better.
Wonderful. I think we can take a couple of questions from the floor. Any one of you all have any questions? Shoot. And the best one gets autograph from Mudit. Should we keep that? Okay. But yeah, any questions, please feel free to share. Yeah. No. I think, yeah. Yeah, I think.
I had a question for Mudit, sir. What are the public speaking opportunities available after you clear CA? Like you've been a TEDx speaker also. So how can one aspire of doing something on those lines?
I think first off, I'm very glad you're asking this question. Most people would say, where are those opportunities? I won't even go in that lane. And you're hunting for those opportunities. One is Toastmasters. You can look at it as an international club. Second is BCS. Once you join certain committees, etc., and you say, I want to conduct a lecture on this topic, they'll be more than happy to have you. In fact, this is where I began many years ago. And multiple people sitting in the audience were judges and mentors to me back then. The second and third is the easiest at this point is everybody can broadcast themselves. You can broadcast your opinion tonight. What do you think about this? And you can put it on Instagram and YouTube, etc. And you can build an audience there. So that is a form of public speaking. In fact, the most scalable form of public speaking in a way, because there are just unlimited number of people who can hear you. So I think third is the lowest hanging fruit form of experiment, and you can even try the other ones.
And let me give you a quick this thing where none of this is possible. A very elementary way which I encourage people: get 6 of your friends to jolly well listen to you for 30 minutes, and you listen to them for 30 minutes on different days of the week. It builds your confidence in your ability to communicate. Coincidentally, he spoke about accountancy being taught by MBAs. I used to teach communication at Jamnalal Bajaj because I felt that this is something that I needed to do. And I learned the hard way, fighting elections and so on. But I actually learned the hard way. But the point is, initially, you have to start get 6 friends, tell them, "Aaj mujhe sunna hai, kal main aapka sununga." And it's not as easy as it sounds. So try it out. It builds your ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what Mudit does, motivational training, is right up here. Maybe comedy is even up here in terms of doing stand-up. But what one can start is with maybe a technical subject. So let's say talking with a PowerPoint aid on Ind AS, Companies Act, etc., does work you up. I mean, again, like Mudit, my induction happened in BCS. 2008, Chirag Bhai was there. It was convocation at ICI. And there was a lecture here in BCS which I had to address. So in a way, my convocation happened here in terms of speaking to that audience. But generally talking on a technical topics makes you get into it and then get into real-time motivation.
I started as a BCA study circle group leader in BCAS. So
yeah.
On the subject of TDS, which I went on to write a book thanks to BCAS again.
And I think we are hearing you after this talk, right? So we'll look at your public speaking today itself. Yes.
Hi. So my question was that a lot of times when we want to do MBA abroad, maybe a lot of focus is on extracurriculars, and for good reason. I mean, we have to be holistically achieved, right? In a lot of different avenues. So one question I had is that after we become qualified chartered accountants, we've missed out on the last 4 years of, maybe college life or participating in extracurriculars. So what are the avenues that we can look at, maybe to improve our extracurriculars, not just for building up our application per se, but also to develop ourselves holistically? I mean, beyond academics.
Sir, you were talking about difference between CAs and MBAs, and the difference is closing because he has one CA who's wearing a suit with sneakers. So no, I'm very happy about that, right? So the shoes, great shoes. See, I think life is extracurricular. Outside of exam, everything is extracurricular. So you don't even need to look for opportunities. For example, when sir was talking about if you're doing a business, you go out there. If you're doing a practice, you have to hunt for business. How to convince people? That's an extracurricular. You're interviewing right now, probably looking at different videos on how to crack interviews. That's an extracurricular. When you join, you will think about how I can be more impactful in meetings. That's an extracurricular. How I can make a good presentation to a client. That's an extracurricular. You don't even need to try. So you just need to think about how I can become a more, one is knowledge and second is conveying a knowledge. How can I become better at both of these things? And I think in the pursuit of both of these things, extracurriculars will get covered by themselves. I hope I helped you there.
Yeah, definitely that helped. But just talking about the application point of view, if I talk about, maybe college applications, usually if you try to apply for Ivy Leagues, they'll maybe look at, you being at a state level, national level. So are there any avenues that we can pursue right now?
Oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood your question. You're looking at extracurriculars in the context of what MBA schools will consider extracurriculars.
Yeah, that would be a part.
So beyond extracurriculars, what they really measure is your impact creation. What is your story? So when you're writing essays or when you will be going for interviews, why do you want to study at that institute? What is the purpose that you have created? Now, whether you are working at an NGO, whether you are not doing any extracurriculars, but as part of your official duties, you've been able to lead initiatives which show your impact towards that purpose. Have you been vocal about maintaining a blog about something that really matters to you? Have you documented any videos? Have you done any research projects around something that matters to you? I think it is for universities abroad, what really matters to them is what is your story, what is your purpose, and how that institute will help you achieve that purpose. So anything that adds to that story is a relevant extracurricular there.
I'd like to add, not from my personal experience, but let me tell you, my son did his postgrad at Harvard. So I'll share with him. I think not to discourage you, but let me tell you something. So I want to give a word of caution to all of you who are looking at that sort of a career option. All these MBA schools and other Ivy League colleges look at real life exposure. So don't be in a hurry to apply, because they really look at your story. As he said, my son worked in a Adivasi village near Godhra for a year. He got a Ford Fellowship over there subsequently. But he was working and he got ultimately into Harvard. And I know the sort of effort that went in and the sort of time gap between his graduation and his actual admission over there. So don't think that you've cracked CA, so your next step is going to be coming tomorrow. It doesn't happen that way. It takes time. 100%. So I thought I'll just share this experience, because I used to talk to my son as to why he's spending time doing other things. He was very emphatic that they will not take me. He got into Harvard after he applied first time, but then he had a long gap between his graduation and his postgrad. So why I wanted to mention this is not to brag about my son, but no, because people go with the immediate after CA, you have expectation कि अभी next year उधर जाएंगे. It doesn't happen that way, so be prepared for that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Wonderful. I think true to the BCS culture, we started on time and we'll stop on time. But thank you very much for your patient hearing. We hope you enjoyed listening to us as much as we enjoyed sharing with you all. Yes, Vishal, no problem. Go ahead. Vishal is just fresh from the oven today's investment banking interview. Go ahead, Vishal.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Hi, Anand sir. Hi, Jayant sir. Hi, Mudit sir. Everyone, good evening. This is Vishal here. So my question is to Mudit sir. I read your book, How to Be an Invincible Personality. So the factors that were mentioned in that book, it seems little impracticable to me that how a person could be that invincible, So I had a question, what's your perspective about it,
See, I love this pushback because now we are experimenting, right? At the end of this conversation, there's an opportunity for each of us to learn something new. Your question is, being invincible may not always be practical. So how to apply the concepts of the book in real life. Do I understand that okay?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. That is the question.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between being invulnerable and being invincible. Being invulnerable is the ability of not being damaged at all, which is impractical. Being invincible, in my view, is the ability of being damaged, but knowing how to get back. In which case, I think it might be slightly more practical as compared to being invulnerable, which is outside of the scope of human beings as of this point.
Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
But we can debate about it. I think that's an
Yeah,
interesting question.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been an extremely engaging talk, and I'm sure that you have got many answers to some of the questions which hadn't even struck you. We will now move on to felicitating the All India Rank 1. This time Mumbai has got so many rank holders, and we are so proud of all of you. May I request Zubin Bhai to please felicitate the All India Rank 1 Meet Shah. Uday Bhai, may I please have you here on the stage to felicitate the All India Rank 4 Akshat Jain. Meet, can we have you here? And then after that, we will listen to Akshat. And yes, please come. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank BCAS for organizing this felicitation and giving us an opportunity to hear so much from these eminent speakers. Just like Mudit sir rightly said, qualifying CA is a double-edged sword. The more the opportunities, the more the confusion and the more the difficulties. Speaking about how I reached here, there are a lot of things that went into making sure where I am today, and a lot of you might have already done that as well. But I think one thing that made sure that I am consistent throughout my preparation would be having belief. Believing in the impossible made it possible for me. When I joined CPT, it seemed very much impossible to score good marks and passing with good marks in just 3 months of preparation, because we were just right out of 12th standard, and the usual feeling after giving any exam is to relax and to enjoy. But it was not possible. It was not possible for CA students. After every exam, you have to keep on preparing for the next examination. Once I cleared CPT with 180 plus marks, I realized that if I can do this in 3 months, then I can definitely do much more and with much more efforts. And I went on to clear Inter-CA with All India Rank 2. After that, my belief in impossible became even more stronger. I realized that if I can do this in 9 months, then definitely I can do much more in 3 years itself. And this belief in impossible made it possible that I secured All India Rank 1. And I'm very sure that this quality will also take me ahead, because just after clearing CA, a lot of opportunities were available, and a lot of opportunities, dream roles seemed like these are the roles only for MBAs. These are the roles only for CFAs. Very few CAs get into these type of roles. But again, my belief into impossible made it possible for me to get into management consulting. So I think this is what everyone should focus on. Everyone should take this learning from their CA journey, believing in the impossible to make it possible. Thank you.
Good evening, eminent mentors, BCS torch bearers, and all my new dear CA freshers. I'm not going to tell you how I cleared CA final. No, that's not a topic for today, because
if you all didn't know, you all wouldn't have made it to this particular hall. So you all definitely know it. What I can do is I can share one personal anecdote of my CA final journey. The next day we had the audit paper, and I do suffer from insomnia. So one night before, when I switched off all my books at 12 a.m. and I decided that I'll wake up at 6 a.m., I'll take a 6-hour sleep. I went to bed at 12 a.m. but I did not get sleep until 1:30 a.m. And knowing how much of my audit portion was left, laying down in bed for 1.5 hours, making no sense of it and doing absolutely nothing, it was literally, I was having internal panic wars within me. What was worse? I planned to wake up at 6 a.m., but as God would have had it, I woke up at 4:30 a.m. Now you all might think that it's a good thing, right? I slept less, but before an audit paper with memory being the key aspect, do you think a 3-hour sleep would have sufficed? No, right? I was literally very tensed. At that time, my mom told me, she gave me one very important guidance at that time because I was myself panicking. She told me that तुझे अभी नींद नहीं आने वाली है, तू अभी पढ़ने लग, आगे टाइम मिलेगा तो आगे सो जाना. And that is exactly what I did. I again tried sleeping at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., but it wouldn't have had, it didn't happen. Basically, it wasn't meant to be on that particular day. And I was asking God that why did it have to happen to me? And most importantly, before audit, because we all know how audit is, right? I don't have to tell you guys how audit is. But why I'm sharing this is because all of us have faced at least one incident like that in our CA final journey. And we've all come out of it with flying colors. We've all made good of it. We've all endured hardships, suffered from obstacles, but we've all made it to this particular BCS hall on the 10th of September, 2022. So in life, if ever you don't make something out of it, you'll face some failures, you all think that you could have done something better, or you think that you aren't a perfect fit for something. Just know that how you all overcame so many obstacles during your CA final journey, and that will lead you through. You all are made for something much better. And if it wasn't, if you all didn't have it in you, again, you all wouldn't be hearing this from me right now. So all the best to all of you. And yeah, to an exciting journey ahead. All the best.
Thank you, Meet and Akshat, for sharing your thoughts. And we'll now call out the other rankers. I'll call them in the name, in the order of the names. Please step forward. And may I request our eminent mentor speakers to, Jayant Bhai, you could start with doing the honors for us, please. Agam Agarwal, rank 31. Aniket Sahu, AIR 41. Hetvi Shah, rank 40. Ketal Chandalia, rank 48. Mansi Agarwal, rank 17. Mudit Bhandari, rank 46. Mudit to Mudit. Nishant Khandelwal, rank 33. Okay. Satvik Chitlangia, rank 29. I will now ask Chirag to please come forward and do the honors for the next one. Shriya Vijay Shah, rank 43. Vedant Gada, rank 37. May I now request Zubin Bhai to come forward? Vivek Durgesh Pandey, rank 48. And Raghav Rathi, rank 23. If there are any more rankers in the audience here and who have not put down their names, please come forward. We will now have the cake cutting by all the rank holders. So I would request all of them to come up ahead. We're just getting the cake here. Oh. We will have the vote of thanks and the announcement of the forthcoming events. And after that, we will felicitate all of you. I hand over the proceedings to Utsav to please do the honors.
On behalf of BCAS, I present my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers. Hello. Audible? I present my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers to mark their presence and guiding students with their experience, insights, and knowledge which they have accumulated over the years. I am sure that their guidance will surely have a deep impact in each student's life in making their career choices and otherwise also. I am thankful to our President, Shri Meerbai Sheth, Chirag Doshi, Vice President and Chairman of Seminar and Public Relations and Membership Development Committee, Mr. Narayan Pasari, who has a very keen interest in nurturing the next generation and encourages all the committees to have dedicated program for Gen Z. This event would not have been possible without consistent efforts of Ms. Preeti Cherian, Brinal Mehta, Lalit Panchal, and Vishal Podar. The entire structuring, planning, executing preparations were made by them. I also thank all the participants who invested their precious time for this event and made their presence here. I thank you all that especially to the students who had to wait for too long hours, and ensure that each and every part of this event has a huge impact on their life. Lastly, I would like to thank the BCA staff for making all these arrangements and working tirelessly. As regards upcoming events, we have Internal Audit 101 5th edition, which is to be held on 14th, 15th, and 16th September. It will take you from the basics of internal audit to the newer areas of internal audit, the additional risk, and what all protocols or safeguards which you can have to mitigate those risks. Also, BCS has held a seminar on DSC management. It shall be conducted by CS Jigar Shah. It will be held on 8th of October. After this event, a YouTube link for this entire session will be shared with all the students. So those who could not attend physically can surely view this. Now you are members, sorry. We'll also share you a detailed Google form either through WhatsApp or through an email. We are planning to have a job fair at BCAS, and we need insights from the new members that what all they want. Based on your inputs, your suggestions, we'll design a job fair accordingly in coming months. That's it from my side, and I will request Narayan Bhai to have to distribute the photo frames to our eminent speakers.
At BCA, for each event, we click a photograph of the speaker in action, and then we hand over to him at the end of the event. And we have been consistently doing it for last 5 years. So I'll take this opportunity to hand over to Mudit